Hello and welcome to Studio 2. In this video, we're going to be running through the new setup of Studio 2, how to use it, how to turn it on, and how to plug in a microphone. Before we do that, though, I'm going to run through the equipment that we have in this space, and we'll go from there. So, we have purchased some new equipment for this space. We're also using some of the old stuff that we had. We'll run through that now. So on my left, going from top to bottom in this rack, we have the RME Octamic 2s. These are 8-channel mic preamps. They're quite clean sounding. And below those, we have two Warm Audio WA73 EQ preamps. So these have a preamp section and also an EQ section as well. Between the two of these, they kind of reflect what we have in Studio 1 with the new Neve mixing desk, which uses 1073 preamps, which are the same as these effectively. The Warm Audio ones are copies of the Neve preamps. And we also have an RME preamp in Studio 1 as well. So you can still get the same kind of range of tonal colors between each studio. Below that, we have the two headphone amps. So these are the headphone amps that you route to when you create headphone sends in Pro Tools. And they are going to be used for kind of distributing that signal to whoever might be in the live room. Next to the preamp rack, we have the monitor controller. So this is used for basically turning up the volume to the speakers, and also for switching between the speakers as well. And we'll see that a bit later on. Beside that, we have the Icon QCon Pro X, which is our control surface in this room. This is used for controlling the fader levels of your channels in Pro Tools, as well as doing things like automation and controlling the record, play, and pause of the tracks as well. And then we'll go to the other side. And over here, we have at the top of the rack, the Furman power conditioner. So this switches on and off all of the equipment in the room. Below that, we have the Lexicon 300 digital effects unit. And below that, we have the Antelope Audio Galaxy 32 Synergy Core sound card. Below that, we have an API 2500 plus compressor. So this is a master bus compressor, which operates in stereo. And below that, we have a stereo EQ by Mag Audio. In terms of monitoring in this room, we've purchased two new sets of speakers, the Genelec 8341s and also the Focal Twin 6BEs. So between the two of them, you can get a really nice sound and you can really accurately hear what's going on with your mixes. These are the same monitors which are available in Studio 1 as well. So there's parity between the two spaces there. Okay, so that's the equipment in the space. In short, let's look at turning on the system. So we're going to go, first of all, when we enter the room, over to our Furman power conditioner, which is over here. And there are two switches that you need to worry about on this. The first one is the main power, which we're going to switch on. And the second one is this button which says sequence. And when you press the sequence button, these three LEDs on the left will start to illuminate. So they say delay 1, delay 2, and delay 3. And you'll see as they start to turn on, the equipment starts to turn on around me. What this Furman power conditioner is doing is it's switching on each of the pieces of gear in order as they need to be switched on. When you're working in a studio, certain pieces of equipment need to be switched on after other pieces of equipment. So for instance, our speakers are always turned on last. This stops any popping occurring because of the switching on of other electrical equipment and protects the speakers from damage. So whenever you're in this space, always turn on using the main power button first and then the sequence power button, and wait for the sequence to complete before you do anything else. When you're turning off the system, you want to go in reverse. So we're going to turn the sequence off. That's going to count down on the LEDs. And only when all of those LEDs are fully off can you press the main power button. And we'll put it back on again now. So once the sequence has fully completed, we can then turn the computer on. And the computer is located just below the left-hand side of the desk. You won't be able to see it on camera, but there's a round silver button on the left-hand side of the computer unit. You press that, you hear the Mac noise, and the computer will load up. The next thing you do is on this little box here. So this is a USB hub, but it's also going to be our second monitor power. We're going to press the button at the top, and that turns that on, and everything is now on in the studio. And usually the second monitor will pop on just here, but we've got screen capture going on using that instead. So you won't see the second screen today, but you will be able to see a blown up version of what I'm doing on the computer. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to swing over here. So we'll go to the other camera, and I'm going to load up Pro Tools. So Pro Tools is found at the bottom of the screen just here, and I'm going to click it to open it, and it should load up in a couple of seconds. So when you first open Pro Tools, you'll be asked to create a new project, assuming you're not working on a project already, which you can just open in the usual way from a folder. So we've got this Studio 2 template from September 2021. It may be updated, so go with the latest date that you can see on there. And we're going to create a 44.1 sample rate session for this particular session. We want our file type to be WAV, 24-bit, and we're going to get Pro Tools to prompt us for a location to store our session in. So I'm going to press Create now. So the place that we store our sessions is over on the left-hand side here in a folder called Student Work. And first year, second year, third year work goes in here. You name it as your name, or if you're staff, it gets saved in here. So I'm going to save this into my folder, and I'm going to call it Studio 2 Video Test. And I'm going to press Save. So that creates a folder, all of the necessary files that Pro Tools needs, and opens my Pro Tools session. I don't know if we switch back to the other camera, if you saw that, but on the icon QCon, the session loaded up and the faders automatically went to their home position. So the position that they're created in with this template. So if I move a fader now in Pro Tools, the fader goes up and down on the icon, and the reverse is true as well. We can control the DAW with that. So that's a good thing to test. If that's broken and not working, let us know and we can fix that. Let's go back over into Pro Tools now. So in Pro Tools, we've got these two windows side by side. So this default template loads up with a single audio track, which is these blue tracks, for every possible mic input in this studio, as well as a reverb channel, which has a software reverb assigned to it, which is currently in bypass, and also the lexicon effects unit assigned to it as well. It also has a headphone master for the main headphone send, so that's going to be headphones 1. And each of the channels is preloaded with a send, which will allow you to route audio to the headphones. So you click on one of the sends here, turn up this little fader that appears on screen to send audio to the headphone. And we've also got the same down at the bottom for our reverb as well. So the amount of reverb you want on a channel just here. We'll have a quick look at those later on as well. for now, we are going to start to plug in our microphone. So ordinarily, we would be plugging in our microphone in the live room through that window. But for this demonstration, I'm going to just plug it straight in to our Patchbay. So I have a microphone over here in a case. And ordinarily, it would be on a stand. And I have an XLR cable as well. So I'm going to plug this into the Patchbay over here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plug the microphone into the cable. So the socket end goes into the microphone. And the plug end goes into the Patchbay. So over on the Patchbay, you'll notice that it's labeled up with various labels. And currently it's patched up 1-to-1 so that whatever is plugged into channel 1 in the live room will go into channel 1 on our preamps. I'm going to plug into channel 1 on my RME Octamic preamp, and they are labeled up here. The warm audio preamps are 17 and 18 down here. So I'm going to unplug this cable. When I finish my session, I'm always going to plug it back in afterwards, but for now, I'm just going to plug my microphone cable in here and make sure my microphone is switched on. And we're going to go over to our preamp now. And if I talk into this, I can already see that my preamp over here is registering that there is some sort of signal. I can turn this on and we've got even more signal coming through just here. If I turn it up too loud, we'll see the clip light come on, and at that point you want to back off with this knob. So this is your gain knob. So this increases the amplitude of the signal that's coming from the microphone. We also have various other buttons here. So we've got our 48-volt phantom power, a low cut button, and also a phase invert button, and that's the same across the board here. And those buttons are found over in this section on the warm audio preamps as well. Okay, let's go back over to Pro Tools now. And in Pro Tools, because I'm working on channel 1 of Octamic 1, I'm going to press the record arm on this track, and we can see the level coming through there on our first channel. So we know that we're getting microphone signal into the sound card, and it's all working correctly. And if I turn my speakers up a little bit, you can hear that, or you should be able to hear that there's audio coming through. We're going to keep those down though, just so we don't get any nasty feedback. So that's our microphone plugged in. We've pressed the record arm button in Pro Tools. So this is the button that you press to tell Pro Tools that you want to record that channel. And now all we have to do is tell Pro Tools to start recording. So to do that, we can find the transport window. If we have this full screen, the transport controls are also on this side, but I'm going to keep it like this for now. And we're going to record enable the Pro Tools session. So the record button starts to flash. So this is telling Pro Tools that we're about to record. And then we press play in order to start the recording. And as you can see here, if I expand out this track, my voice is starting to record, and we're getting something coming through on our channel. So this could be an instrument, it could be your voice, it could be someone singing, and we're capturing that in our DAW in Pro Tools. Okay, so that's the basics of actually getting a signal into Pro Tools. We can, from that point, play it back. Here, if I expand out this track, my voice is starting to record, or we can start to do other things to it. So let's say we want to play this track back and send it to whoever is in our live room via the headphones. The way we do that is that we would call up our Headphone Send. So in our sends over in the mix window here, we're going to go to headphones, and we can just turn that up as much as we need to. So I'm going to turn that up just here. And if we switch over to this camera, you can see that because I've turned that up, we have some signal coming through on the top of our headphone preamp here. Just on the top one though, because that is headphone preamp 1. And if we routed to headphones 2, it would come through the second one instead, or as well. So that is setting up our headphone send. Let's now route our signal here to a reverb. So to do that, I'm going to go and do exactly the same thing as we did with our headphone send with this reverb channel that's at the bottom. We can also access these from the bus menu, so we can click on these little gray areas here and go to reverb, or we can go to headphones 1, headphones 2. But these are set up for you already, and we're just going to turn that up. And we can see on our reverb channel here that we have something coming through on our reverb already, and because our lexicon is patched in there, it's going to be our reverb for this. So let's turn up the volume here and see what's going on. My voice is starting to record, and we're getting something coming through on our, you can see here, if I expand out this track, my voice is great. So hopefully you heard the reverb there. So what's happening there is that this Lexicon 300 unit is set up as an insert. So I can go to any of the inserts, which work a lot like the sends that we've just seen, and I can go to this I/O section. And usually when we're using an insert, we'll load up an EQ, which is a piece of software on the computer. In this case, we've loaded up the Lexicon 300, which is a physical piece of equipment that we can route out of Pro Tools and back in with. So this takes the signal from Pro Tools and into the equipment and then back again. And we can do the same with the compressor or with the EQ. And we can then change the audio or the effect that that's on that piece of audio using the physical piece of equipment. So there's various patches on this piece of equipment that we can use, and we can go through and find them and change them with the different controls on here. There we go. So we can change the type of effect that we have here. If I expand out this track, my voice is starting to record, and we're getting something coming through on our, you can see here, as we can hear there. If you don't want to use the lexicon on this template, you can just select it, go to no insert, and that takes it out. And you can unbypass the software reverb instead. And that will sound a bit like this. My voice is starting to record, at least by default. All right, let's just set up those other pieces of equipment, and I'll show you how to route to them once again. So we're going to go into Inserts and then I/O, and we can route to the left channel of our API compressor here. So I'll just press play, and if I do something on here, I don't know if the camera is going to pick this up, but we have something coming through our API compressor, and we can start to change the compression on that. And we can also load up multiple effects in this way as well. So we can go from the API into the mag EQ, and we can see again on the mag we've got some signal present there, and we can play with the settings to get the sound that we desire. So in terms of playback, you're going to sometimes want to change between the two different speakers that are in this room. So with the MC 7.1, we can change the volume up here, and we can change between the two sets of speakers using these two buttons here. So we've got speaker set 1 and speaker set 2, and you can press them both at the same time to flick between them. And I'll just do that with this piece of audio we recorded before. This is starting to record, and we're getting something coming through on the channel. So this could be track. My voice is starting to record. So you've got the different sounds from the speaker there. There are a lot of controls on this panel that you don't necessarily need. They are going to be fully labeled up, so you know what needs to be pressed in at what times. But the important one really is making sure that this stereo to speaker 1 is highlighted for whenever you're doing stereo work. And also that you have this one highlighted as well. So stereo from surround. Input C, just here, is the computer audio. So this is anything that you're playing back from YouTube or something like that. And input D is this aux cable just here for if you're plugging in a laptop or something like that to the speakers as well. So they might be on or off. It's good to kind of switch them on only when you need them, really. So when you've got artists in the studio, you're probably going to want to talk to them. The way to do that is to use this button on the right of the unit. So this says T-back, which means talk back. And by pressing it, we engage the small microphone, which is just below that button. And hopefully you can see that that is going into the headphone amps just here. So you can see as I'm speaking, these are now lighting up. And if I release that button, they're not. So this is only engaged when you have it held down. So let's look at setting up a MIDI keyboard or a MIDI channel in Pro Tools in order to play the keyboard that we have in the room and hear some sound from it. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to go to Track and New, and we're going to create a new stereo instrument track. So you do have MIDI track as an option here, but we're going to create an instrument track instead. So the difference between the two is that MIDI tracks take a MIDI signal in, and they'll put a MIDI signal out as well. So this is useful if you've got external synthesizers that you want to record into Pro Tools and then play back at a later date. We're using a software-based instrument, and so we need a MIDI input and an audio output. And for that, we're going to use an instrument track. And I'll call this piano. So that creates a new track, which is somewhere over here. There we go. It's called piano. And the first thing I'm going to do is load up an insert on this. So in this instance, we're going to go to multi-channel plugins and instruments. And I'm going to select the Mini Grand instrument, which comes with Pro Tools. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to record arm this track. So that's telling Pro Tools to look for any MIDI data that's going to be coming through there. And quite simply, I'll go over to the keyboard now and press a button, and it should just work. If for whatever reason that's not working, contact a technician and we'll be able to sort that out for you. But it's probably worth checking that it's plugged into the computer if that is the case. There is one last set of controls that I want to show you before we go today, and that is the LED lights. They're on a little remote, which is Velcroed to the side of the desk. Please don't steal the remote. And you can change the color by pointing it kind of into the corner of the room there. The lights do work when the remote is just stuck to the side of the desk. So that is everything that we need to cover for today. Do get into Studio 2 and have a play around. If there's anything you're not sure of, feel free to contact the music technicians on music.technicians@ncl.ac.uk. Thanks a lot.